Welcome to Storytime with Papa Henry. We are reading the book Captain Daley's Crew at Thunderhead Lake by Craig Massey. What happened the last time we were together? Do you remember?
They met another person named this one kid. What was his name?
Yeah, we met this kid who lives there in the woods on the mountain. What was his name?
I don't know.
Who knows his name?
Rufus.
Rufus. And his last name? Do you remember that?
Hayseed.
Hayseed. Rufus Hayseed. Yeah, what a name, huh? And so we learned a little bit about him. And then, do you remember the very last thing that happened in the last chapter?
It was another explosion.
Another explosion. And the game wardens were there then, whom we met in this chapter as well. And they have taken off to find out from where the explosion came. This chapter, chapter 5, is called Chippy Chipmunk. Well, it looks like our new friends mean business, Chuck said, watching the plane dip beyond the forest. I hope they find out what those explosions are. They give me the creeps, Pudge explained. It's so dark, I don't think they'll be able to see much, Slim said. We waited until 10, but we didn't hear the plane again. I'm tired, Pudge yawned. Captain Daley grinned. Oh, I guess you fellas won't want to talk all night. Not me. I want some sleep, Slim laughed. Well, Rufus, you can sleep with Chuck, Slim, and myself in the big tent, the captain informed the little fellow. I saw Rufus' face change in the flickering firelight. He almost sobbed. I want to sleep with Gary, please. I don't want to sleep with no one else except Gary. The funny little guy came over to me and put his arm around my neck and stood there trembling. Somebody told me once that you couldn't help loving somebody that really loved you. I guess they were right, because I know from that moment I loved little Rufus Hayseed like he was my brother. I figured he wasn't a Christian, and I put him smack on top of my private special prayer list, asking the Lord to make Rufus love Christ the way I do. The captain read the Bible, and we had a short prayer meeting just before we turned in. Rufus got his way and snuggled in the tent with Pudge and me, and I can tell you, there wasn't much room left. Sniffles had trouble finding a spot on which to curl up. About noon the next day, the silver plane returned with the 2 game wardens, but they didn't know anything new. How would you fellows like to take a plane ride one of these days? Dan asked. Yippee! Let's go! Pudge shouted, forgetting the good manners his mom and pop had taught him. Not today, Dan said, but maybe next week sometime. That was something to look forward to. None of us had ever taken a plane ride. The wardens left, and we decided to explore the edge of the lake. Sniffles followed us, barking at everything he saw. Hey, Rufus, do you ever do any hunting in the fall? Slim wanted to know. Rufus's little chest puffed out real proud then. Sure, he beamed. I go hunting all the time. Why, I'm the best hunter around these parts. I shot a deer and a duck and a rabbit and a deer and 3 squirrels and lots of chipmunks and a great big black bear as big as a house and Again, the little fellow ran out of words. In spite of his fibbing, I couldn't help but laugh. Just the thought of him even carrying a gun was funny. Pudge looked scornfully at Rufus and asked, You shot a bear? Sure, a whopper of a bear. He was a-coming for me, and all I had was a single bullet. And just as he was a-gonna eat me up, I pulled the trigger and he rolled over deader than a log. Weren't you scared? Pudge asked, half believing the wild story. Nah, I ain't a-scared of nothing, not nothing in all these here woods. I chuckled remembering how he trembled when he thought the gang was the ghost of Thunderhead Mountain. We had a happy time kidding Pudge and Rufus. Pudge couldn't figure the little fellow out. Every once in a while, he'd come and whisper, "Gary, he's a spy. We gotta watch him." We came to a tiny brook emptying into the lake and followed the tangled jungle-like bank upstream for a half-mile until we found where it bubbled out of the side of a mountain. It was a spring with water as clear and cold as ice. We cupped our hands together and scooped up water for a drink, loafing around until Sniffles took after a half-grown chipmunk. The poor chipmunk scampered up a bush, fell off, then headed for a hole in a tree. Sniffles gained on it, and when the dog's jaws were about to rip the poor thing to pieces, it dodged into a small hole in a log lying on the ground. Slim held Sniffles while we looked for the animal. "I see him! He's crouched in the middle of the log," Pudge said, peering in one end. Suddenly, he sat down and started to take a shoe off. "What are you doing?" Slim shouted. "You can't go barefoot here." "I'm going to capture that chipmunk and tame it and make it my pet," Pudge said, taking off a sock. "How? He's too far in to reach," Chuck said. Pudge grinned. "That's where a smart fellow like me comes in handy." Pudge poked the top of the sock into one end of the log. Then he said, "Somebody get a stick and stir the chipmunk." I saw his plan, and so I found a stick and stuck it in the hole. The frightened chipmunk gave a shrill shriek and flashed right into the open sock. "Isn't he beautiful?" Pudge said, opening the end of the sock and peeking in. I took a look and saw the little brown, black-streaked animal. It was pretty, soft, and cuddly. "I'll have to put him in a box a few days, but when he sees I'm his friend, he'll be as tame as a kitten," Pudge said. Pudge was that kind of a fellow. He loved animals, and animals loved him. One time, a fellow gave him a skunk, and Pudge had it tame in no time, tame as any house cat, and a heap more fun. Everything went fine for a while, but some men who didn't like us much ran into the skunk's cage, and that was the end. Wow, what an explosion. Not noisy, but smelly. But that's a story that dates a long time ago. Pudge put on his shoe and we journeyed back. About every 3 minutes, Pudge would open his sock and take a peek at the chipmunk. "You'll wear the stripes off his back," Slim said. "How come?" said Pudge innocently. "By looking at them so often. They can't stand it without fading out," replied Slim, keeping a straight face. "Aw, you're crazy!" Pudge exploded. But poor Rufus believed Slim's kidding and began to worry. I had all I could do to convince him Slim was only fooling. "That dog of yours better not bother Chippy," Pudge said to Slim. Slim looked at Sniffles. "You better be thankful we had this ferocious, vicious, lion-killing dog along with us. Think what would have happened if we'd met that terrifying chipmunk in the woods without protection. Why, it could have attacked and even killed us. But good old Sniffles came to the rescue. Did you see how fearlessly he charged that wicked creature? He faced sure death so we could escape." By this time, Pudge was fit to be tied. He looked at Slim in disgust, then looked at Sniffles and said, "You're both crazy." "Now, if my big old brown hound dog had been along, he'd have caught hundreds of chipmunks for us," Rufus said. By the time we reached camp, the chipmunk was so used to Pudge that it didn't seem to mind his chubby fingers stroking its tiny head. He got a box that some beans had been packed in and fixed up a cozy little home. The chipmunk took some cedar bark Pudge put in the box and made a nest in one corner. It sure was interesting to watch. We fed it tidbits, and soon it would fill 2 pouches on the inside of its mouth until it looked like it had the mumps. When it couldn't store any more, it would scurry to the nest and hide the food. After supper, Pudge took the little animal out and petted it while we sat on the lakeshore and watched the sunset. It sure was wonderful. Clouds overhead were colored a deep purple. fading away to light pinks and yellows. Chuck piped up. Hey fellas, I've been studying the far shoreline for the last few minutes, and I keep seeing a red spot over there. Chuck pointed, and we stared at the spot until Slim exclaimed, I see it. There's something floating on the water. It's the red airplane, Rufus squeaked. We looked for quite a while, but none of us was sure it was an airplane except Rufus. I seen that plane around here lots of times. Why didn't you say so yesterday when we were talking to the game wardens about it? Pudge asked. You didn't ask me, was the simple answer. Let's take the rowboat and see for sure, Chuck suggested. The captain agreed, and the whole gang of us started out. We got to the place where we could see it was a red plane all right, but it was getting so dark we had to return to camp for fear of not getting back that night. Say, that's funny, Chuck spoke as we re-entered camp. It looks as though somebody paid us a visit while we were gone. Somebody had, and all our bedclothes were messed up, and our food supply was broken into. Breakfast cereal was spread all over the place, and a bag of sugar was 3/4 gone. The next chapter is called Atop Thunderhead Mountain.